Thanks. And anytime.
Okay, so I love the stories about how you started Catch One. So how did you start it? What were your reasons and inspirations? And I'm thinking about when you were working across the street and this place was like Black Sand. So tell a story about how did you start this place?
Okay, the dream first came to me when I was working across the street at a supermarket as a checker back in the late 60s. And it was known to all the African Americans that they weren't welcome, at the what was then called the Diana Club. So I just kind of said to myself, one of these days I'll own that club and everybody will be welcome. Several years passed and I ended up getting my own business, but the first business was a boutique. I did that for a couple of years and the recession came and I wanted a recession-proof business and people party and have a good time and drink when they can't afford to do much of anything else. So I set out to look for a place to purchase, and I would every day get the LA Times, go in the business opportunities section, look for a place to go out and check out. And this particular night, there was a place down the street from the Diana Club, and I went to see it. I didn't like it. I drove by. I said, just on an outside chance, there's a for sale sign or something, and it wasn't. But when I got back to my business, I purchased the next morning's LA Times, and in the business opportunities section, there was this new listing, a bar on Pico. I wasn't real certain of the address. Didn't really think it was the Diana Club because there's another bar a couple of blocks down the street. So I jumped in my car and came right back over, and lo and behold, this was the address. So the next morning, I met with and made an offer to the then present owner of the Diana Club. So that's how we started.
So what was it like in the first days? Like, how did you manage? Can you say when you started the club and what it was like in the first days?
Sure. It was in
Can you say
1972.
that we started the club? I started the club in.
Yes. I started the club in 1972, and at that time inherited the customer client base of older, mostly retired white people. And it was just an amazing turnaround from what it was back in the 60s. And then I was welcomed with open arms. There was no women bartenders in California. There was a law against it. So therefore, I didn't have any bartending experience. But these guys that were here, and women too, had been drinking at this Diana Club for at least 30 or 40 years, some of them. And so they offered to help me, and I kept the previous bartender for about 2 or 3 years too, to take care of the daytime crowd. And these older, retired white people would come in 7 o'clock in the morning or so, and we'd drink. I didn't drink at first, but then it was like you get into it after a while. So we would drink until about 6 or 7, or till the sun go down. They would leave. Then blue collar, straight, primarily men, African American men would come in and shoot pool and that. And they would leave around 10 or 11 o'clock, and then the gays would come out. So it was a lot of hats and a lot of faces, that changes that we had to go through in order to keep all of these people balanced. But eventually it all kind of blended together, and we'd have birthday parties for one of the old guys, and the gays that would come in on their lunch hours or whatever, that knew my daytime crowd, they would come down for it, and we all just had a good time. It was great.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you got this whole building? Like, is that something that we should cover? Like, how did that happen? That you started this whole.
Sure. Yeah. Well, initially I had but $1,000 when I walked in here. Didn't know where the rest would come from, and just by begging and getting a couple of loans from a banker that I knew that eventually got into a lot of trouble because he wasn't supposed to make the loans, based upon my getting a SBA loan, and he did. He made one to both me and my partner. And then when this building became available, when the Catch One, as it stands now, became available in 1975, and this upstairs part was being used as a, well, dime a dance, but inflation, it was like so many dollars per hour kind of situation where there would be hostesses here and then men would pay so much to dance with them. The fellow that owned the business was very old. He owned a couple of these big old ballrooms from the 1920s, and he ran those kind of operations. And then he became ill, and his attorney took over.
You know, we're gonna need a shorter story.
Okay, all right.
So maybe just like you started off saying I only had $1,000.
Right.
And then how did you finally come to like where did you get the money from and the support from, or to actually get the whole thing?
To get the whole thing, by that time I'd been in business for 3 or 4 years, and the old guy that owned the building didn't have any heirs, and he died, and the attorney didn't pay, so it went into foreclosure, and the old owners sold it to me.
I see.
Make a
How it
long
goes
story
like.
short.
I know, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
So what describe Catch One to me now, like in all of its facets, both as disco and community center. How would you describe it?
It means a lot of
Can
things.
you start with Catch One?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Catch One means a lot of things to a lot of people. For me, it's like my being able to contribute to the community. I think it's been very instrumental as far as being a place where people could gather to get information about what was going on. We were able to introduce them, these are the clientele here, to things like the Christopher Street West Parade that we didn't know about, because the communities, black and white, you know, were pretty separate for a long, long time. And we were the first black entry into the Christopher Street West Parade. Politically, we've been very active as far as supporting various and sundry politicians that have had fundraisers here. Representative Maxine Waters and Reverend Jesse Jackson, when he was campaigning for president, among a couple of them that have had fundraisers here. A lot of groups, activists have sprung up here. Today we have recovery meetings, both Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the past we've also had adult children of alcoholics meetings here too. In addition to that, we have the Gay and Lesbian Community Services Centers. They have a dance here or dance instruction, I guess, on Thursday nights now. And we've done a lot of fundraisers for AIDS organizations.
I just have two more short things. What role, like, what is your vision? What role do you see Catch One playing in the community? What would be your ideal vision for it? You just talked about all its involvement, but do you have like a overarching kind of vision for it?
Yeah, from its very inception, I wanted I wanted Catch One to be a place where everyone would become or could come and feel welcome here, regardless of whether they were black or white or Hispanic, whether they were straight, gay, or whatever. I wanted a kind of universal feeling of acceptance of everybody here. And that if I had one wish, that was for that to happen. And we've had degrees of that over the years, you know, but eventually something will come up that will make a schism down in the middle of whatever is happening now, you know, whether it was AIDS or riots or, you know, whatever. but I still have that dream for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do. And also, like, how do you, it's interesting that you're a bar, but you make a place for people in recovery. Can you tell me, like, your approach to that or your ideas about that? Is
Yeah.
that important to you, or?
Yes, I had to wrestle with the issue of recovery and having a bar personally. I'm now a little over 9 years in recovery, and before I got sober, I had to be willing to do anything if it meant, you know, leaving the bar business. I had to commit to my sobriety, but fortunately I didn't have to do that. I didn't want to take away from the community that needed the Catch One, needed a place together, needed a place that they could call their own. This ownership of especially African American, lesbian, and gays that we have here. I would not want to lose that, and fortunately I didn't have to. And there's people that can drink. There's only a small percentage of us that can't. So we just use it to have fun, and folks that can drink do, and hopefully have a good time.
That's great. And also, can you talk about a couple of the organizations that got their start here, the Unity Fellowship and the AIDS Project? And then can you say, and if you don't mind, say in 1989, my partner Rue and I started Rue's House, because then that'll lead us into Rue's House.
Sure.
So what are the organizations that got their start here?
There's been several organizations that got their start here at the Catch One. The Unity Fellowship movement, which is an African American religious movement, got its start here. The Minority AIDS Project, which came out of that movement, got its start here. The Catches also drew.
Wait,
Okay.
second, wait, cut.
Hold it. Anytime.
Okay, and no.
Sure.
Okay.
Can we just use it?
Yeah. Can you locate the phone and just take it off the hook?
Really?
Got it.
And we were also instrumental in starting Imani Unidos, which is a food pantry for people with AIDS. And then in 1989, my partner Rue and I started Rue's House, and the Catch has all but supported it. Really for the first 3 or 4 years, totally supported it, and now we're still one of their biggest contributors, of course.
Okay, so we need to end, but I just want to say, is there just one thing you want to say about Catch One to the world?
You're invited to the party.
Maybe just say that. I just want to say.
Yeah,
you're
right.
invited.
Right.
So just say that.
Okay. I would like to invite all of you to come to see Catch One, visit, have a party when you come to LA.
Great. Sorry we were so rushed.
That's
Thank you
okay.
very
No
much. About how important, about like when it opened up and how far it's come since then.
Well, I do remember the night that Jewel opened the upstairs portion, which was the disco portion, and it was very stark. But from the very beginning, the Catch One always had the sounds. They had the music. And so the community began to rally. At first, we were a little shy. We came out and checked it out, and, then you have to go back and talk about it and so forth. But eventually it just became the hub of activity and the place to go. Everybody came here. And as I said, they always had the sound. But aside from that, at that time, in the middle of the disco era, I didn't know Jewel personally then. And it was hard to even think of someone having a vision for our community and what her vision was. We came here to party and to hang out. but she had a vision of what this building, what this facade was going to mean to our community. And over the years, any kind of political organizing, so much of it has happened here. This has been not only a place to come and party, but it's been a place to come for Alcoholic Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, those type of groups. Unity Fellowship and MAP, initially starting out. This
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so tell me about when you first discovered this was opened and how far it's come since then.
Well, actually, I was here the night that Jewel opened. That was in the middle of the disco era, and we were partying at our regular haunts. But we had to come over to check it out and see what this new disco was going to be like. And at that time, it was very stark. But from the very beginning, Catch One always had the sounds. And it was thumping. I mean, you could just feel it, all, through the building. And so eventually the community did really rally behind it, and this became the place to go and party, and eventually pulled people from other communities into this community to party because they had the sound, they had what was going on. But there was another side to Catch One that I think is unique and has been valuable to the community, and that was that this was always a place for us to come and to organize. Usually in the African American community, the church is the cornerstone. And the Catch One was kind of like the church to our gay and lesbian community because there was a space here, there was a freedom for us to come and meet and organize, and a lot of the political organizing that came out of our community happened here. I know Unity Fellowship got its start here. MAP got its start, in this facility. There was always space for the different anonymous or 12-step groups to meet and do their thing. So we partied here, but we did good work here as well. And it was, back in the 70s when she started the disco thing, and I was doing my disco thing, I didn't know Jewel personally then, so I had no idea of the vision that she had for our community. And over the years, as I've grown with the community and moved from being a person that was out in the middle of the dance floor taking my twirls to an activist and being really actively involved, I become more intimately involved with Jewel. And I have to say that she is appropriately named because she's a treasure to our community. And she's always been here for us. She's a role model. She's unassuming, but powerful. And when you talk about the mother of the community, I have seen her pay attention to the talents and energies and positive things that each of us individually had to give, never pushing, but always there through it. Always there for us through everything. I mean, they've tried to burn this place down. They've done different boycotts back and forth. But when I go into the movie theater and I see Beaches and see that they filmed a portion of it, down in Jewel's room, I say, hey. Or when I go and see Tap or different films and know that not only has she been here doing this for us, but also for, we can see beyond the Pico address. And it's good. It feels good. And she's a tremendous individual. She really is. Really is.
Thanks. Sandy, can you talk about how you got to know Jewel and what you think about?
My experience with the Catch One and Jewel's room and Jewel herself spans the last 13 or 14 years. I have been here dancing and, just having a really good time. And didn't really, in the beginning, I didn't really know Jewel, but as I have come to know her and respect her, I can sort of describe her as being the rock for the African American gay and lesbian community in South LA, the same as Martin Luther King was the point person for the civil rights movement in the early 60s. And Nelson Mandela has done so much for the people in South Africa. I can equate Jewel in that regard as what she means to me. She's a dynamic person, very quiet, but she's very effective and does the things that really needs to get done without asking for a whole lot, without demanding anything, just being a sweet person. I couldn't love her anymore. She was one of my own sisters, and I've told her before, and I'll say it again, I aspire to get to the place where she is, respected and just a person that is so dynamic and has so much energy and so much power for us. This is Catch One is a place that we can call home in the gay and lesbian community of African American descent. It's really important to us to not have to drive so far, number one, to go and have a good time and have a place where we can be ourselves. That's extremely important since we do have the stigmas that go along with being gay and lesbian within our own communities. So Jewel is just a class act, and there's no one that I can think of that can follow.
Thank you. Bobby.
Hi.
I wish we could follow up on a lot of this.
I can only echo what's already been said. The Catch One and Jewel Williams are part of my history, part of my life. I came to Los Angeles when I was 18 years old. I'm now just a few months shy of 50, and I've been here from the beginning. And at first, it was a place to socialize, to dance, to check out. But as I grew in my own community and in my own involvement, and certainly in my own political life, it became very much more important to me. I've attended so many affairs, so many functions here, so many organizing events, much beyond the dance and way after the music died down and much before. As was mentioned, in the early days of Unity Fellowship, we had services here. We had our church services here. I stood on the stage with Jesse Jackson when he was running for president. He brought his mother and his wife and his daughter and one of his sons, and he demanded that we have people with AIDS in the front row, and he brought them on stage, and we had a prayer service here for them. I've been here for AA meetings, for CA meetings. I have taken meals to the homeless from the kitchen downstairs. I have been in this building and wondered how Jewel kept the doors open and the lights on. I know there have been some lean times. I can remember very well being in here with the bartender and the DJ and me and thinking, gee, how is she doing it? I mean, I remember standing at the bar one day, and Jewel never doesn't know this. There's a few lines I remember saying after going home after one long, lonely night here, thinking, well, I didn't catch one tonight. And something came out of it called At the Bar. I looked in the mirror and I saw my face, vacant and empty like the place, full of faces like my own, afraid again to spend the night alone. But this won't be the same, I said when I walked in. I recognize a few, and there's one or two I still call friend. But the empty time it came and went, the clock would not be stalled. So with my elbow and my ego bent, I tacked my passion on the wall. And I, like a lot of people, have left a lot of passion in this building because it was passion and love and good blood, sweat, and tears and hard work that created it and that keeps it here. Our community would be so lost without it and a lot less for it. Jewel has always been there, and one thing that's always amazed me about her is that she's always put the community first and what we needed first. When the place was smoldering, was still in ashes after this anonymous fire, people came and offered her a good dollar for this building, but she stayed, and she stayed, I guess because she needed it and needed us, but I think also more importantly because she knew how much we needed her. This is not just a club, it's not a bar, it's much more than that. It's a community center, and it's been our community center long before we had any other organized places to attend. One story, when our current city councilman was running for the first time to be elected in this district, we just started a group called the Black Gay Men's Coalition for Human Rights. And we got on the phone and we called his campaign office and spoke to his campaign manager, and we said, you don't know anything about us. We are Black gay men, and you're running to be city councilman in our district. The largest Black gay identified club in the country is in your district, and you don't know us. We think you need to talk to us. And we got on the phone that we called the Sentinel, the largest Black newspaper out here. And they actually put a little article in the paper, Black gay men invite the candidates, and we were really surprised. We could only do that and get that kind of attention and that kind of recognition from the community, from the straight community or from mainstream community, because this building, this institution had already established us as being important people on the map. Very often politicians in particular, will write us off because they think that we're not a viable voting bloc. But I represent a lot of people, and these ladies too. We've lived in our homes a long time. I've lived in this district for 30 years and lived in my home for 20 years. So politicians are beginning to understand that because of what Jewel has done. In the early days, when we were just trying to put together a minority AIDS project, had no money for it. At that time, Congressman Maxine Waters was in.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but we have to do this outside thing, and we can't include all, and that was a great story that you just told, and I'd like to use that one. But I don't want to just completely cut you off. Is there something that you want to finish with?
Parking lot and sat with us when she was in the California Assembly so we could sell used items to create the Minority AIDS Project. She sat down there long before she went to Congress because of what Jewel had already established here.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're so nervous about the time and everything. Thank you so much for waiting.